This is Life After the Impact. My name is Roxanne Johnson. My son's name is Jamal Bird. He was killed by DC Metropolitan Police October the 1st, 2019. I'm here with my co host this day. Hey, Latoya, what's up? What's good?
What's up, Roxanne? You guys, hi. I am Latoya Benton, the mother of Xavier Hill. Xavier was killed January the 9th, 2021 by two Virginia State troopers at the age of 18. As you guys know, on this podcast, we are about that action and we are heavy on education. So I want to welcome again our friend Dante. Give a brief introduction of who you are, please.
Sure. My name is Adante Pointer. I am the co-founder, trial attorney at Lawyers for the People. We are based out of Oakland, California, but we do take cases beyond California. I've been practicing law doing civil rights litigation in particular for over 21 years. And some of the cases that people may know of and may not know that I was a part of in particular would be the Oscar Grant case, which was made into the movie Fruitvale that starred Michael B. Jordan in Ryan Coogler's first acting debut. Ryan Coogler, shout out, he's from the town of Oakland, is what we call it, like I am. And also the Mario Woods case, which is what caused Colin Kaepernick to start taking a knee.
And so, why this particular part of justice? Why is that so important to you?
Well, me growing up as a young black man in West Oakland, the police, the OPD was notorious. They recruited cops from the South, the deep South. They brought them up here to the San Francisco Bay Area and Oakland in particular. And Oakland, if anyone your readers and your viewers would know, Oakland has a big place in Black history because this is where the Black Panthers are out of. And so they brought those cops in the 70s and the 80s in order to quell and clamp down on the spirit of revolt and resistance that was happening here in the town. And so we had an occupying, essentially, army that was called the Oakland Police Department. And growing up under that and seeing that and understanding my history, I always was aware of it. But frankly, I went to law school thinking I would do more like economic development because I always felt like, we needed our communities across the country are undervalued, underinvested in. And, when they start talking about defund the police, well, hell, the first thing they defunded was our communities. So, that was what I was looking at, but I couldn't get a job. The people who are doing that work don't look like us. And they're asking me, how do you think you're going to get a developer to invest in the hood when, you don't have any of those type of contacts? And so, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who is now mayor of Oakland, I had been interning and working for her from undergrad through law school and writing speeches and stuff for her. She was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this dude named John Burris?" And John Burris, along with Johnny Cochran, kind of pioneered this area of law. And so that was his good friend. And I went and studied up on him and was like immediately attracted to the work of being able to work on behalf of the people, but be independent and be able to speak my mind without some boss over me, trying to censor me or not take certain type of cases. And so, yeah, I've been doing it 21 years ever since. I fell in love with it. And this is, some might say my calling. I don't know. I just love what I do.
Now, Adante, tell me this. How do we, well, let's kind of let's dive into it. Let's say somebody who is not, it's not their calling, it's not what they're supposed to do, right? But we live in this community. We all live in this community right here. So how do we get to a point where, or what do you advise people to do when it comes time to learning about the law, when it's time to look for an attorney? What do you think is best practices for community members when looking for a civil rights attorney?
Yeah, so the first thing I have to understand is civil rights law is not necessarily set up to give us who have been victimized or violated the best chances of getting justice in the court of law. Keep in mind, the same people who set up this quote unquote justice system are the same people who have had their foot on our community's neck, who have defunded our cities, who have made police occupying forces and set up the laws and the rules and put judges in place, even for rules that read on its face that should be helpful to us, Oftentimes it comes down to a judge interpreting whether or not your case qualifies. So with that being said, it's not an easy route. It's not like what some people would think if you look at TV. And that's the way that the media wants to portray it, is that, oh, something happens to some black person, attorney comes in, they file a lawsuit, and then there's a check in the mail. That's the furthest thing from the truth. What happens is you can file that lawsuit, and behind that is a bunch of work. It's an uphill battle. There's a bunch of trap doors and booby traps and all kind of stuff in order to get your case kicked out of court, either be it by qualified immunity or all other types. There's a bunch of different rules that are available to the cops and to the cities and to the government to protect them from your lawsuit. And so when you're looking for an attorney, it's important that if you can find someone who actually has not only talked the talk, but walked the walk. They've successfully litigated cases. They have experience doing this. They've taken a case to trial. Because the thing is, what they report on the news, those big verdicts, or, somebody won, or a big settlement, the reason why they're reporting that on the news is because that's uncommon. Uncommon. I live in the Bay Area, which is probably one of the more civil rights friendly judicial areas. And when I go and negotiate cases, or I go and talk to judges about my case, they're quick to point out 98% of civil rights cases are losers for us on our side, which is the plaintiff or the person suing. So 98% of those cases, of our cases, are going in a place that's the most friendly for these cases. So I couldn't even imagine what the percentages are, in down south and different places, Midwest, like it probably is 99.8%. And if that's the case, then, it's an uphill battle, and you have to be with somebody who knows how to do the work, knows how to do the work.
So Adante, well, somebody hearing those statistics, right? They're gonna say, "Well, damn, if it's that hard to win a civil rights case, why file?" What is the importance? So again, I think to people will hear numbers like that and they'll get discouraged. But and I also like to tell people all the time too, cases like Brown versus Board of Education, cases like that, those cases were put together, which made big movements for a society. So please stress the importance that yes, we lose a lot, but stress the importance of when we do win.
Well, one of the things, just going back to that statistic, because you're right, it can be discouraging if you're just, hearing the total numbers. But even when they tell me that, I'm like, yeah, Judge, but that ain't my win or loss percentage. That's, because unfortunately, those percentages are based upon people who oftentimes are representing themselves because they couldn't find an attorney. And that's like, in some ways, it's like taking, candy from a baby. All right. So, even though they're going to tell you it's an uphill battle and most of the cases lose or all the cases lose, look, our people have only managed to still be here on the face of this planet because we've refused to be taken off the face of the planet. And so it's that warrior spirit. It's that spirit of resistance. It's that spirit. It's that spirit. It's our ancestors saying, baby, we can't just lay down and let them do whatever they want to do to us. Because if we do that, then shit, why am I even getting out of bed every morning? We have to believe that we can make a difference. We have to believe that even if we're, marching uphill, that we could get to the peak, that we could get to the summit. We have to believe that, and we have to act accordingly. So, I think it's very important. Forget the statistics, and when it comes to standing up for what happened to your loved one, we're not worried about. What we worried about is also creating a public record, holding people accountable, bringing it to the public light. Like I have to tell all my clients, a win isn't just money, because the money ain't gonna bring back your loved one. Okay. Sometimes the win is letting the world know what happened to your loved one and who did it and how, and the truth. Because we all know, unfortunately, the police and the media work hand in hand. And so the police already have a narrative about why your loved one deserved the way they passed away, deserved whatever happened to them. And if you just leave that as the record and you don't do anything, then that's the way it's going to be forever etched in history. And that's not fair to us or our loved ones.
Yeah, and the fact that fewer than, like, about less than 1% of police are indicted for criminal charges when there's police brutality or death occurs as a result of police interaction. So we don't have any other recourse but to go to the civil side. And in the spirit of Black August, when you were saying that, made me think about Mamie Till, who this
Mm.
month it marks, I forget how many years, maybe 60 years since her son was killed by some uh, white nationalists, and she decided, yeah, I'm going to let the whole world know what happened to my child. I'm not going to just bury him quietly and go away and maybe y'all give me a couple dollars, what have you. And so, yeah, we have a history of that, and we need to continue that history. What are some things that this just happened to somebody? What are the couple one to five things that they need to do right away?
Yeah, something that, of course, it's emotional but needs to be done is get 4 or 5 great photos of your loved one. Because what we see is when it first gets reported out, the police are telling them, hey, this happened. And they're going to give, if your loved one has a mugshot of any sort, even if it's a case that they weren't convicted on, they taking a picture, that's what the police are going to give them. Okay. And so and that's their effort to try to make the world not care about what happened. So if you have pictures that show your loved one with their kids or with family or having a good time, showing them being a normal person, that somebody is out here in the world and has people that love them and they love others, that helps a lot, especially for me as the attorney, because I'm going to send that to the news or put out my own press release and things or on social media so that people start caring about who this happened to. It's not just a name, it's not a t-shirt. This is someone who was loved and loved other people. All right, so that's important. The second thing is, if this happens somewhere, especially if it happened in the hood somewhere or wherever it's at, is like getting your people out there on the scene, because you never know where those video cameras are at. You don't know where the door the ring cameras were at, and these recording devices, surveillance cameras and things like that. They only have so much memory and backup, and so it may have caught something that could be helpful. Okay, and but if you don't go out there and get it, oftentimes 48 hours and things like that is gone. So getting out there to the scene and knocking on doors and talking to people and figuring out where people were at, where people home or weren't at home, like that could be helpful. And you never know where the key piece of evidence is going to be at. And oftentimes you may not even know that it's a key piece of evidence until you put the whole puzzle together. I had a case, and I won't go too deep into it, but police were doing a police car chase, and the police didn't turn on their lights and sirens, and they claimed that they didn't do the car chase, which then caused a car crash where somebody died and a whole bunch of people were hurt. Fortunately, there was someone out there who just happened to be filming, not filming the police, just happened to be filming, and the police car went by, and we could see the car they were chasing, and that was key to breaking the case open in order to prove that, no, y'all lied. You said you didn't do a police chase. Yes, you did. Here goes the video that shows that y'all was chasing this car. And then that made other people come and give us more information, which helped us build the case. So, that's the second thing, is get out there on the scene, try to look for those video cameras, talk to witnesses and things like that. And then the other piece too is, as you mentioned, it's going to find an attorney, and really researching the attorney. Like I said, finding someone who has experience, who's done cases. That doesn't mean, hell, every expert was once an amateur. When I first started, I didn't know everything, and people had to trust me to do their case, and I had to learn, how to do it. So I'm not against saying you have to get someone who's the most, who's been practicing the law the longest, because sometimes those people are tired. Sometimes those people don't have the energy anymore to put up the fight and so on and so forth. I'm just saying it works best if you find someone who has experience. If you need a heart surgery, you're not going to go to a foot doctor, the podiatrist, because they don't know how to work on the heart. They're a great doctor, but they don't know how to do this type of surgery, right? So similar things with this, and getting somebody you can identify with, or at least can try to identify with you, because when you're telling these stories, and let's just keep it real, there's things that are within our community that we have to deal with, and that attorney, if they are scared, you know scared because of, they like, man, I got to go in court with these black folks and deal with the white jury, and then they're going to be hesitant off the rip to even try to think about, I might have to take this the distance. Or people have records and things, people get scared, oh my God. It's like, man, this is my community. Just because you have a record don't even mean you a bad person or even that you did what they said you did. You know, that's the criminal injustice system at work. All right. And then uh two, and I'll finish with this. And this is for people who are actually fortunately have survived and they're alive to fight their case and they're doing what they're doing. And they oftentimes the police will put a criminal case on you. You have to be so careful because how you resolve or settle the criminal case could be the reason why you don't have a civil case.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the classic play that they use. They're gonna put a case on you, resisting arrest, assault on the officer, and it's bull crap. But they're gonna put that over you, make you face some time, and then they'll come to you at some point in time and say, hey, just take this little charge and we can make all this go away. And you thinking, ooh, let me jump on this before they hit me with a whole bunch of time. Well, you just need to know, and I'm not saying you don't do it because hey, money is one thing, but your freedom is valuable. So I get it. But you should be making an informed decision. Find out on the back end after you took a plea or a deal, then you come and talk to somebody like me, and I'm like, wow, that was a great case for you on the civil side. Here, you got the body worn camera, you got witnesses, but I can't do nothing because you took a plea deal, and that deal is gonna keep you out of court.
Adante, tell us too about, okay, so let's say now you got a great attorney. You got this great attorney. He's a five-star attorney. He know what he's talking about, right? But then you got a shitty judge. Then you have members of the community who are not peers, your peers, who are on the jury. Help is stress the importance of still being involved in what's going on within your community because like I said again, you can get a good lawyer, but if you got a shitty ass judge, it's gonna still like go nowhere. Or if the jury still looks like the other side, it's still going nowhere. So kind of like help stress the importance of that.
So the model at my law firm, is we try to fight the case in the court, but also out in the street. And so raising the profile of the case, making people aware of the case, making folks understand what the true facts are of the case or the questions that you need answers to is important because you just never know who's going to be in what position to deal with your case, be it as a grand jury. And of course, the judge in any of these trial and court proceedings, the jury is told only listen to the evidence that you're going to hear in the courtroom. And that's the rule that they're supposed to follow. But I would be lying to you if I thought that every jury on every case follows those rules. Okay. And people are influenced by what they may have seen or heard a year or two beforehand. And hell, it might not even be that they heard the news about your own case. Sometimes it's news about other cases because you're educating and conditioning the community that this isn't some one off situation. And that makes them better able to receive the information if you got to get to trial around, hey, this stuff happens. It may not have happened to you, it may not have happened to your loved one, but on the other side of town, this is what's going down. And so it's important on social media and news and things like that to get the cases out there because really we're all helping one another. Unfortunately, it may not be my family today, but it could be my family or my loved one or my friend or my coworker tomorrow. So by us raising the profile of these cases, we're actually making the larger community aware that this is not some one-off isolated incident. Man, this is some bad cops out here doing bad stuff. And so that's important. So raising the profile, being and also encouraging your attorney. We've all heard this saying, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Well, why would we think it's any different for an attorney? Even though, and I, even though we like to pretend, I don't say like to pretend, even though we might want to think our case, if we have one, is the most important case or the only case the attorney have. If their attorney only has one case, they're probably not the best attorney. Okay, just keep it real. Why you only got one case? You know what I'm saying? It's like getting on an airplane. There's only one person on here. I'm like, man, what does everybody else know that I don't know? Right? So if they have more than one case, which they should, then they're trying to manage this stuff. And if you want to make sure that they're still involved, in tune, and pushing your case, well, you want to check in regularly because look, something that was, whatever the loss was, whatever the case about was personal to you. How can it be more? How could you expect the case to be more important to the attorney than it is to you, right? So, if my client is calling me, and I don't mean calling for, every other day, every other hour, I mean, of course, when the case is fresh, maybe I do need to talk to you that much because we're trying to strategize and figure stuff out. You trying to tell me information, that's different. And I often tell people, look, when we first start out, it's going to be me, it's going to be you, it's going to be your family, it's going to be your friends, it's going to be people in the community. It might be all these community groups. And yeah, let's go, let's go. But when that fanfare dies down, who's going to be standing there next to you? The news camera isn't going to follow you when you're grieving, when you're at the cemetery, when you're at the plot, when you can't get out of bed that day. So I'm looking for my clients sometimes to get in contact with me and be like, hey, you know what? I'm having a tough time. What's going on with the case? What can I do to help? Uh, hey, you got some witnesses? Yeah, but I ain't been able to find da 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 da. Oh, what? Hold on. Where he stay? Oh, my people over there. Let me see if I can go find them. Because the truth is, our community is spooked sometimes to talk to the investigator or talk to the police, the ones that out there, and be like, I'm like, hey man, I got a warrant. I don't want to be up in here. And so sometimes you need that encouragement from somebody in the community. It takes a mama sometimes to go down and talk to somebody and say, hey, if this happened to your son, your daughter, what would you do? I need you to talk to my attorney. I need him to talk to the investigator. I need you to show up to court. I need you to show up to court, and not show up to court all janky. I need you to show up to court ready to represent for our community because this is what's at stake. So yeah, you have to be involved in the case. It don't mean you have to take over the case. I'm just saying you have to show some interest and be willing to help. As they say, many hands make light work. You know.
And silence is compliance. When we don't speak up, it's like, yeah, we can go over there and do whatever we want. Who gonna check us? Who gonna check us? Right? And so we got to get to that point as a community where we're saying, yeah, we're gonna check y'all because we tired of y'all harming us in this way. And what you were saying about, gathering the information to help you to help their case is very important because we need to control the narrative because you can best believe they got a narrative that they trying to put out there and they want to control the narrative in a negative way. So, it's incumbent upon us to do that in a positive way. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Go ahead, Dante.
Oh, I was just like, yeah, no, I'm just saying right on.
No, okay. Next subject I want to move on to also about let's talk about deadlines. Because I think people will sometimes also wait until they okay, because some people might know about quote unquote statute of limitations, right? But also people might not know about the notice of intent to file. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, most and the timeline varies depending on your state. Okay. So timeline varies depending on your state. And I was looking at a case in Mississippi, and I think the time where you have to file is like 3 years. But let's back up so people can understand what we're talking about. So most people see the headline that says a lawsuit has been filed. Many people don't know that if you want to file a lawsuit against the government, so that's your city, that's your county, that's the parish, that's your police department, that's the state trooper, any of those type of government entities, oftentimes what's required is that you file a notice of intent, or here in California it's called a government tort claim. Essentially it's a claim. Okay. And it's the first step, and it's a mandatory step if you want to have all of the rights that might be available, all of the charges that you could bring against the police officer for what they did. You need to file that notice of intent or a tort claim because it's almost like shooting a gun across the bow of the ship. It's a warning shot. It's telling, and it's supposed to give the government agency notice, essentially saying, hey, I'm writing you to tell you this happened on such and such a date. This is the person that was harmed. This is where it happened at, and this is why I think your government employee is wrong. And then they're supposed to then go investigate that. And what's supposed to happen is they investigate it, And it gives the government entity, the city, the county, the parish, whatever that is, the state, an opportunity to do right by the person who claims that they were wronged. Now, do they do that? Oftentimes, no. I have probably two, three, four, let's say less than 5%, and I probably less than half of that, where I filed a claim and they call me up like, hey, Mr. Pointer, let's see if we can try to make this right and do right by this family. Usually it's just a no, but it's a required step, because if you skip over that step and go to the lawsuit, and here in Cali and some places, you don't have that, they're gonna throw your case out. They're gonna say, hey, you didn't follow the first step, or they might keep your federal claims and throw out your state-based claims. Because many people don't know that there's two levels of law you can try to use in order to hold police officers accountable. It's your state law, okay? Because every state has a constitution and stuff like that, and different rules that apply in that state. And so you have to file that claim in order to be able to use those causes of action or those charges against the cop. But if you're going just straight federal, you have 2 years from the date of the incident, and you don't have to file a claim. You could just file your lawsuit. However, if it's against a federal agency, then you do have to file a claim. So that's why getting into an attorney is super important, because once again, as I said earlier, there's all these booby traps. There's all these little different rules that are designed to make it difficult for you as a layperson to come in and do your thing. So, it's very important you find an attorney and be mindful of the deadlines, because they're unforgiving. Unforgiving, meaning, like in school, you might not turn something in and you pull up, tell the teacher, hey, I forgot to give it to you. They're like, okay, I got to deduct a certain amount of points off your grade, but I'm going to take it. Not the same. If you miss the deadline, too bad, so sad, and get out of line quick. So, you got to be mindful.
So I think I want to just like that's what we got to stress that, because I know when my son got killed, people were like really stressing to me statute of limitations, right? And I'm pretty sure Roxanne's heard the same thing. But then we started hearing about notice of intent. I know with Xavier's case, we told them on like a Facebook Live or something like that I was gonna sue them, so they knew they were about to get sued. But so I think they was able to use that as I don't recall us writing it down, not for my son's case, but I know they were on notice. They was gonna get sued. So again, and I know another lady's case who she's waited up until this point in time where she's like, okay, now I want to find an attorney, but she hasn't filed the notice of intent in the time frame. So it's like it's a point of getting an attorney now because you didn't file the intent. So you can't sue anybody.
Right. So, once again, every state has these laws around all of this stuff. And some states there's exceptions. So, we start learning the rules of law, we always think about there's a law, but there's also usually an exception or a special circumstance. So, there are rules that would allow you to file your notice of intent late. Okay, but even those rules, like here in Cali, they add another 6 months. So essentially, you have 6 months from the date of the incident to file your claim, and then you have 6 months after that to file your lawsuit. However, if you miss that first 6 months, then you have a year, and you have to petition the court essentially and say, hey, I'm filing this late, and this is the good reason, this is the good cause for filing it late. So, that's a part of the game. But if you don't know the game, you don't know where to look to get the game, then yeah, you might just think, oh man, I missed the 6 months, or like I said, Mississippi, different place, a year, 2 years, 3 years. Oh man, it passed. I ain't got no action. And then one of the exceptions in a lot of places is, sometimes, well, not sometimes, a lot of the times, the police are covering up, right? And you might not find the conspiracy or the true evidence till later. And that sometimes happen, right? The feds come in and investigate this cop or something late, or maybe whoever, or another cop tells on another cop because they fell out, and now you get the real story. You're like, oh man, that's what happened. Well, you would then be allowed in most places to then file your stuff late, because you can say, hey, they essentially defrauded me. They told me it happened this way, but it really happened that way. And I only found out about that, last month or last week or whatever it was. And the courts usually will say, okay, that's an exception because the government wasn't being straight up with you. They weren't telling you the truth. They told you to look left when it was really going right. And once you find out it was right, you should be able to come into court and tell them. So that's stuff to think about too.
Good information. Good information. Yeah, you gonna say,
I got one more question to go with too, outside of that as well. So one more question for you. I always want to kind of go over this with attorneys too. Can we clear up, or what would be your thoughts on people file civil lawsuits because this is blood money and they don't want to take that blood money? I've heard that so many times, right? And oftentimes I counter it with examples like I said again, Brown versus Board of Education, stuff like that, because those are civil cases. So, and then I want you to answer that question alongside of how important is it to also know about other cases that are similar to your case and not just about your case?
But yeah, there's a lot of emotions when it comes to settling a case or even going to trial, and the jury comes back in your favor and awards money, because unfortunately that's the only thing that the system is really set up to give. Back in the day, it was eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and all that kind of stuff. Well, the American judicial system doesn't work that way. And trust me, many of the families wish it did, right? Because that's called retribution. You know what I'm saying? Uh, but this situation, in terms of the way our justice system is set up, the only thing that it gets you is money. And yes, I can understand, because I worked with a lot of clients where they like have some guilt about taking money. Like, dang, did I take money in exchange for letting these people off? Did I take money in exchange for my kid's life or my loved one's life, or for what they did to disrespect me? Life is priceless. But as I have to tell people, look, when you started this journey, when we filed the lawsuit I took your case on, that's, if I could give you more, I would. But this is all the system
One quick
makes
question.
available for
Keep
you. Go
going.
ahead.
One question though. So, but I have a question. Is it not true though that you can still write some kind of not necessarily, because I know in order to okay, policy reform, because legislation has to go through delegates and whatnot. Can that still not be written some kind of way in certain lawsuits or some kind of way outside of money?
Yeah. So in terms of options on the table, the one that, what's the word I'm looking for? The one that's mandatory in terms of if you settle a case, or if you want to, go to trial and win a verdict, the jury comes back, they award money. That's called damages. But in terms of options that are on the table, in terms of policy reforms, training, things like that, I've had, several cases, many cases, where we've been able to get that done, to prevent something from happening to another person. However, that's oftentimes that's something that's voluntary. So, if the police department or the city, don't feel like it's a problem that needs to be fixed, if they don't feel like their training is deficient, and a lot of times it's very deficient, or they overemphasize danger to where they putting all these cops out here and feeling like every time they talk to somebody, every cell phone is a potential gun. Well, man, they just shooting because they're spooked, they scared, right? And those are the type of training things that you hope to fix. Some police departments are open to it and some aren't. And you won't really know till you get in the case. But if you go to a jury trial, you know, there is no box that a jury could check and say, hey, this this needs to be fixed, this policy needs to be fixed, this training needs to be fixed. Only thing that's on the jury form is not guilty or not guilty, but liable or essentially responsible or not. And then how much is the harm or the damage? What type of number does the jury put on it? So, and then I'll finally stop with this and say, how I think about the money is twofold. One is, me personally as the attorney, I'm Robin Hood. Okay, I'm Robin Hood. I'm going to the vault of the cities, of the governments that take our tax, that undervalue our community, undervalue us as Black people, and I'm running up in there and I'm taking everything I can get and I'm taking it back to the hood. taking it back to my community. So I see myself as Robin Hood. And then when I give that money to this family, I'm telling them, look, no, this ain't enough money for your loved one or whatever happened. But you know what? Money is a tool. And so if there's some opportunities that you could give to the surviving kid, make sure they get educated, make sure they have therapy, make sure they can grow up in a nice place, okay? Or for yourself, get your own therapy or take care of yourself, put people on firm financial footing to open the business, to do this, to do that, to do other community service, to start up a scholarship fund. Like, let's plant money trees. And so when you say, I don't want the money, I'm saying, man, but you may not want it, but I know there's somebody in your family that need it. So take that daggone money and you spread it around and plant money trees in the people you love or the causes that you want to support life. All these impacted families in this country, and you can't, I mean, people need stuff. Man, that funeral, that second autopsy, the investigator to go out and do the work because the attorney doesn't necessarily believe in the case yet, you know, like those are needs. Those are needs that could be met, by different people. So I definitely don't believe, yeah, blood money, yes, blood was spilled. But we didn't set up the system that spilled the blood, nor did we set up the system that says that this is the justice for the spilled blood. We are simply surviving in a system trying to make the best out of the worst.
When they give us scraps, we make chitlins, right? So I mean, that's what it is. That's what it is. And as I was listening to you, I was thinking, which is, that whole argument about, do we need reform or do we need revolution? But that's a whole nother discussion. We ain't gonna talk about that today. We gonna talk
Down,
about that today.
yeah, me, it's on my mind, you know. Hello.
You from Oaktown? I know it's I know what side you on. I know what side you on. You got any final thoughts for us? We just appreciate your graciousness and coming on, and just really appreciate you. You got any final thoughts for us as we are moving forward in this fight?
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate your platform, your two sisters, all that you've been through and gone through and personally and dealing with this issue and still getting up every day and, can smile even on the days you don't want to and push forward and created a platform to put that pain into, to put that frustration into so that people can get information so that they can feel like there's a community out there, is super important. So, I salute y'all for that, and doing that because it's important, and in terms of, just in generally speaking, for us as a people and as a community, as a culture, as a diaspora, whatever you want to call it, the idea that like we're constantly under attack, different ways. The police oftentimes is the one that's most upfront and personal to us because that's the representative of the government that most of us deal with. Okay. And with the badge and the gun and all this stuff that goes with it. And we got legislators, you got presidential administration, you got all kind of stuff, environment, food, everything, education or lack thereof, under attack, substandard housing, everything under attack. And it's because we're so great. It's because we're so great. We're such a mighty people. They had to unleash the gates of hell on us with dope and the war on drugs and everything else and the music and all that in order to keep us down, right? Like you mentioned Boris Brown education, like, man, within what, 3-4 decades of that, we had a black president. Now you can say what you want to say about him, if you like him or not and things or whatever. I mean, look, there's no politician I agree with everything they did. But the point is that when they said you could read a book, we took it to the highest office in the land in a very short amount of time. So, let's not forget our greatness. And, we got to love on each other, man. Like the idea of being hella divisive and being petty and, wanting to go to war with people that look like us. And, and a good example of this right now is for your viewers is look at the Tupac trial that's going on right now. Now, I Pac, my favorite rapper. Okay, I just got to say that. I'm gonna be honest. My favorite rapper, not because he had the songs where he had you dancing and all of that. But if you listen to his early music and then it was sprinkled in his later music, particularly his interviews, what that brother was trying to do and unite people and get us to stop thinking, get us to stop thinking about tribal, like, man, this is my block and this is y'all block, so we gotta, gang bang against each other. Man, what? You a gangster? You gonna go right around looking for people to look like you that ain't got shit? Excuse my language. They suffering too. You gonna go pull up on somebody that's suffering and do what you want to do to them, and then somebody come and hang some folks from a tree, and you quiet as a church mouse. They gun somebody down in your community, and you ain't picking up nothing. So it's like, man, it's too much. We have too many fights for us to turn and fight each other. So man, my people, man, love on each other. We need it. We deserve it. And man, we got to unite. And yeah, that don't mean we have to agree on everything, but we should agree on who our true enemies are. That shouldn't be up for debate.
That's right. That's right. Amen.
That
I'm
something
Shay.
like, yeah, like clock that, right? Straight clock that.
Yeah, real.
Yes, yes, yes. That's good. Those are good words to chew on. Yeah,
Oh, yes.
yeah, yeah.
Dante, thank you so very much for joining us again tonight. We thank you for all the pointers you've given out to us. People in the back, in the way, way, way back, don't think because you got an attorney, you get to put your feet up. Give that attorney something to work with. I say all the time, I don't care that you've never seen a quarterback throw to himself ever. It's not possible, right? He has a team around him that someone's throwing and catching, and then you got the coaches on the side writing the plays down, somebody at the top booth looking down, right? Create your team. Your tiny is that's cool, right? But make sure you got the community players around you to help building that team to help build the case. And again, take the points from this podcast tonight, you guys, and again spreading it to the community. We are live every Tuesday, also on any social, any podcast platforms. Please also like, subscribe, and share. Roxanne, you want to close us out?
Like, subscribe, share, and donate some money
Donate,
because it
yes.
takes money. This is an engine. Just everybody know in this country, we need the resources known as money, dollar bill. So you like what the content you're hearing? You've seen us out in the community. We be out in them streets. We've been out in them
Be
streets.
outside, y'all.
And we be outside. We are not like sitting back just pontificating. We are about educating and actionable items, and we are encouraging, if you're listening to us, to be about the same. Educate yourself and then get active doing something,
Oh, one more
because
thing.
we're the ones that we've been waiting for.
And I
Ain't
have one more
nobody
thing
coming.
too. You guys, if you also know of any other resources as far as like attorneys, right? Because in order to help build this tree of resources, we have to know who's actually doing the work.
Mhm.
Don't tell me about Ben Crump. Don't tell me about Lee Merritt, stuff like that or whatnot. I want attorneys who actually no disrespect to them, but the ones who actually like boots to the ground for real.
Mhm.
Ones who, if someone has to like watch a videotape of their loved one and they can't go along, but an attorney will go with them. Be sure to reach out to us. We can also be able to provide those resources to the community. My email address is also on our page as well. I'm
Yes.
done, man.
You done? You done?
Yes, yes.
So again, like, subscribe, share, donate, get up off your ass, get off the porch, get in the game, get active in your community, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace.